Hey guys, this is Dana, and this is Red Flag of a Narcissist number 46. And red flag number 46 is their actions don't line up with their words. So before I get into this red flag, I want to just make a statement about this. So there tends to be two different types of manipulative people out there. There are the kind that their actions don't line up with their words, right? So they tend to manipulate because that's what that is, right? So they have this pattern of saying one thing and then doing another. However, there's another type of group of manipulative people out there who don't even bother trying to hide their actions, or if they try to hide them, they're not apologetic. They come across as very indifferent, very unapologetic. If anything, they blame the victim. They have this jaw-dropping level of selfishness and this like staggering degree of lack of empathy. So those kinds of people don't often try to, if they get caught cheating or lying or stealing or doing whatever, they're just going to blame somebody else, and they're not even going to try to backpedal and say that they're sorry. Okay. So just know that. So there's two different main camps of manipulators out there. The group that I'm talking about today is the kind of narcissist, the kind of manipulator who they will, and they often do a great job at saying everything they need to say in order to get their target to stay in whatever dynamic it is that they have going on, whether it's a significant other or if it's a mother-daughter relationship or a parent-child dynamic of any kind, or a boss coworker type relationship, or what have you. So these kinds of people, like I said, they really do a great job at saying what they need to say. And they generally will say some form of, that given enough time or therapy or rehab or church or God, that they will change. And they might say, I'm so sorry. And they might, again, like they're gonna say whatever they need to say. And so this tends to keep the target stuck, because then the target's thinking, well, maybe I don't want to leave now. I've already stayed through all of this awful behavior over this long period of time. I don't want to walk away now, because what if they're really going to change and I'm walking away right at that moment when I could really have this perfect, or this ideal future with this other person. And so this can be it can be really hard, and it'd be really hard for anybody to tell, right? Is this person really ready to change? But you will notice that with a manipulative person, and really the only way to tell if a person's truly, sincerely ready, willing, and able to change is if their behavior is consistently changing. So if you find yourself going around the same mountain time and time again, and it's the same type of behavior, right? Like you keep catching them doing squirrely things, or hiding their phone, or cheating, or lying, or stealing, or these kinds of things over and over and over again, then that shows you that they are not changing. It doesn't matter what they say, because talk isn't just cheap, it's free, right? So talk is free. It's anybody can say anything. And it's important that we look at a person's actions, because talk is free, right? So there's three main ways that they go about manipulating with their words that I wanted to cover in this video. So the first way is stretching the truth. And when we're in one of these situations, it can be really hard to see it for what it is, because odds are we've been manipulated for a very long time. So we're not thinking clearly to begin with. And I also wanted to just say something really quick here too. When a person leaves a relationship, they say hindsight's always 20/20, and it generally always is. And so don't beat up on yourself, and don't be harsh to yourself if you're looking back and you're thinking, I can't believe, because you're going to see everything a lot more clearly. And it's understandable. I've been there too, where you look back and you just think, I was a fool. I cannot believe I just had rose-colored glasses on the whole time. That's very, very normal. A lot of people, when they get out of these dynamics, they have tremendous amounts of embarrassment, of shame, of guilt, of regret, of remorse, and they often feel foolish. So if you feel any of these ways, it's incredibly normal. It's because there's two reasons that a person feels this way, okay? And then I promise I'll get into this. The first reason, because you've been manipulated for a long time. And so a lot of people tend to think that they are in a relationship with another normal human being who has the capacity to change, Why would anybody think other than that, right? I mean, come on. So it takes us a while to realize, no, this person is not normal in the sense of how we define normal, right? They're not changing, and they seem to be, they're not team oriented. They're not relationship oriented. They're very selfish. They're very themselves oriented. But, if a person is very themselves oriented, but they're saying all the things to get you to think that they're relationship oriented, it can be really hard to sort out what is the truth, what is really going on. And of course, there's no shortage of well-intended bad advice from, family and friends and maybe church members or people at work or neighbors or whoever that think, oh, well, this person really does want to change, or give them a second or a 20-second chance, right? So there's a lot of different dynamics that are going on as to why a person stays. And that is for sure a whole another video within itself. So here's some examples of how their words don't match up with their actions. The first way is stretching the truth. So stretching the truth, it's when very general facts are construed in a way that is designed to paint an inaccurate picture. Here's an example. So they might say something like, I have been working in corporate America for 5 years. I am really sick of the rat race. I'm thinking about taking some time off to work on a side business that I've been working on, right? So the intended message in that is that they're trying to paint one of success and financial stability. Okay. However, then you later find out that, in fact, they actually work at McDonald's and their side business is growing marijuana, right? So, and then if you were to confront them about this, you might get an answer something like, well, McDonald's is one of the largest corporations in America. You are judgmental and have a holier than thou attitude. I can't believe I'm even dating a person like you. And marijuana is a very respectable, legitimate business, and they just legalized it. Right? Yeah. So, and then of course, if you're on the receiving end of this, then it's really easy and understandable to think, well, God, maybe I am being really harsh and judgmental because McDonald's is a corporation, and, it is legal to grow marijuana. And so I guess, man, maybe I really am judgmental and, have a holier than thou attitude. So do you see how that can get really confusing really quick? And that was kind of a humorous example, but take that example and apply it in any different number of ways. Okay. So here's another way that actions don't line up with words. Omitting the facts. This can feel like pulling teeth to get the full story. This is because manipulative people tend to only admit to the bare minimum that the other person has found out about. This is, if you've ever experienced this is absolutely crazy making. So here's an example, okay? So you might say something like, hey, did you have a fun night out with the guys or girls? And they might say, yeah, it was great. We hung out and had a few beers and played some pool. But then you later find out that they did have some beers and played some pool. Like, that part was true, but however, all the other guys had brought their girlfriend and he brought his ex-girlfriend, right? So if you bring this up, then you might get an answer or a justification, something along the lines of, they might spin it around where you're controlling, possessive, and jealous and have issues with trust. And this is why they don't tell you anything, because you get upset over nothing. So that, right? And if you're on the receiving end of that, because there's always a kernel of truth in most lies. That's what makes a lie convincing. And so it's really hard sometimes to sort out what is appropriate behavior. Is it them? Is it me? And so this is one of the major red flags, right? If you start getting confused, because confusion is always the first sign of problematic behavior, no matter what that problematic behavior is, whether it's abusive behavior, whether it's you're in danger, whether it's anything, right? There's always confusion. So it starts off with confusion. And so in a healthy relationship, when confusion does surface, it tends to be resolved rather quickly. So this whole situation is manipulative, right? And it's not okay. It's not okay for somebody to do that. And then and it's not okay how they handled it either, right? That they would spin it around, because any normal person in that situation would have a problem with their current partner spending time with an ex and not telling them, and then not doing anything to kind of reassure them, and it, not inviting them. Like, that's just, it's inappropriate. So, and especially not being honest about it. So there's lots of different, issues there. So the third way that their actions don't line up with words has to do with lying. So this is just flat out lying. So here's an example. They might say something like, well, I'm going to take $200 out of the account to go pay some utility bills. And then you later find out that they didn't spend money on the utility bills because you come home one day and your electricity is shut off. So you would bring this up to them, right? And a justification might be something along the lines of, at first, they might blame the utility company for messing up the account. And then, of course, you go calling the utility company trying to resolve this. Then come to find out, no, the utility company didn't mess up the account. They haven't been paid in 6 months. Then the story shifts to, they didn't feel like they needed to pay that full bill because they work hard for their money and they're gone all day. And really, in fact, you stay home with the kids, or you only work part-time. So really, the reason the electric bill is so high is because the air conditioning's on, and the air conditioning's on because you're there. So really, you're the problem and you should be paying the bill. So this is now your fault, right? So now it's spun around, and this is manipulative behavior. And it's very kind of this loose, again, like loose form of logic, right? There's always this kernel of truth in there, but that's not how things go. And it still doesn't explain why they lied about taking money out to begin with. So it's good to kind of question things. So here's some questions to ask yourself if you're dealing with a person with manipulative behavior. Question number 1, do they say that they're sorry, but you keep catching them doing the same kinds of things over and over again? Because if so, this is a problem. Question number 2, do they say that they are trustworthy, but yet they lie, cheat, steal, manipulate, and do all kinds of very untrustworthy behavior? Because lots of narcissists, that in itself is very strange. If you've ever experienced that, they might say that they're one thing, but they're the opposite. So they might say, oh yes, parents just love me. And then your parents might say that person is trouble. Or they might say, I am a very generous person, but then they're not generous at all. And in fact, they don't tip the waitress or waiter, and they don't help anybody. So and then of course this can make a person too feel like, well, what am I missing? Like, they're telling me that they're generous, but I'm just not seeing it. So what's wrong with me? Why am I not seeing it? But you're not seeing it because it's not real. Okay, question number 3. Do they tell you that you can trust them, but then act in very untrustworthy ways, such as guarding their cell phone or talking to opposite sex or same-sex friends? Depending on sexual orientation there, right? Number 4, do they tell you how humble or kind they are, but then act in very arrogant or rude ways? Especially, they might, like right after telling you how humble and kind they are. Do they lack sincere accountability for their actions? Now, you can tell if a person lacks sincere accountability for their actions if they stop doing those actions. If a person continues to do the same behavior over and over again, they're not ready to change, and they're not sincerely accountable for them. So a lot of people will ask, if a narcissist can change. And my response always is, I highly doubt it, but that aside, you will know for sure if they truly do work towards changing. If you're dealing with the same issue over and over and over again, they're not changing. So then we have to change, right? Because there's nothing else that we can do to stay in that dynamic, holding on to hope that they're going to change when it's obvious they're not going to change. That is crazy making. Okay, next question. Do they twist their confusing, questionable, or abusive actions back around and then blame you for their behavior, or blame you for the relationship ending? Now, they might also claim to be abused, like you're the abuser, you're the manipulator, you're looking for a fight. And if you're on the receiving end of this is obviously very crazy making, because it's like, Am I? Am I the problem? Am I the abusive one? I don't think I am. I'm not saying abusive things, and I'm not cheating and lying and stealing and spinning my words around. And maybe they're seeing some part of me that I'm not aware of. And that can be really, really crazy making. That's gaslighting is what that is. Okay, next question. Do they continually tell you that you are the problem? Do they tell you that you are some form of crazy, delusional, difficult, paranoid, overly sensitive, or can't take a joke? Because that's a problem, and that's blaming you generally for oftentimes abusive people will blame their victim or blame their target for being the one with abusive, manipulative, or we're the ones with the problem, right? Like we're the ones that are crazy, delusional, difficult, paranoid, whatever, because we're actually questioning them for doing things that are not okay. And they got busted and they're not accountable, so they're going to turn around and blame us. Do you find yourself continually confused by their behavior? Because in a healthy relationship, when confusion is present, and it does come up, right? I mean, there are things, people get confused, there is miscommunication. In a healthy relationship, it's very quickly and easily resolved. I'm talking within a few minutes. It's not this, when there's continual confusion in a relationship, it's because the truth is missing. That's why things don't add up. The truth is not in the equation. Do you feel confused or crazy around other people in your life, or is it just them? This is a really great way to, I think, to see the situation clearly, is to take a step back. Do you wonder if you are abusive or manipulative or have problematic behavior around other people in your life? Odds are you don't. Odds are it's just around this other person who's telling you that that you're the problem. And so that's a great sign that generally you are not the problem. It is in fact them that is the problem. Next question. Do you find that after you confront them about something that the conversation gets way off track, and next thing you know, you are having to either defend yourself or some behavior of yours in the past, or you find yourself somehow apologizing for bringing up their bad or questionable behavior. So in a healthy relationship, if a person has an issue, they can bring it up to their partner without fearing consequences. They don't have to worry about, am I going to get the silent treatment for this? Am I going to get berated for this? Am I going to get accused of being manipulative? Is my partner going to just shut down? Because those are all forms of manipulation, but those are also forms of emotional immaturity, which really is kind of what manipulation is, right? So either way you look at it, you lose. Because if a partner is not emotionally mature enough to have a relationship, they're not emotionally mature enough to have a relationship. Or if they are, and you're going to have to continually be explaining the basics of adult behavior, which is in itself highly problematic and not conducive to a relationship, right? Or worst case, they're highly manipulative and it's all about them. And, manipulative, abusive people are the kind of people that if you bring up something, they are not okay with that. In their mind, they're entitled to have issues with you or with us all day long, but we're not entitled to have even any type of issue with them. Even saying something like, hey, I thought you were going to go to the grocery store today, can set off an abusive person. So the difference too, so how is this different from a healthy person or a healthy relationship? Again, healthy people have sincere accountability for their behavior and they don't blame others. Healthy people have sincere, open, and honest communication. That communication is also very solutions oriented and it's very team oriented. Whereas an unhealthy person or a manipulative person is all about closed, dishonest, insincere communication. They do not work towards the benefit of the relationship. They work for the benefit of themselves. And without those elements there, without open, honest, sincere, solutions-oriented communication, there is no relationship. Like, it will not work, because that's the foundation of a relationship. That's honesty in motion is what that is. So if you're with a dishonest person, there is no sincere relationship, because it's all based on dishonesty and manipulation and lies. And that's kind of like building a house on sand. You know, it's going to be fine, but when the tide comes in every few hours, it's going to erode that foundation. So that is red flag number 46. And if you guys have any more questions, comments, or you have some feedback, or you want to add to it, please feel free to do so down below, and we'll go from there. So as always, lots of love to you guys. You are not alone, you are not crazy, and you really can move forward and heal from this. So take care, and I will talk to you soon. Okay, bye.